One of the big questions that is coming up now that we have a vaccine ready for approval is the idea of whether the process of getting the vaccine to market has been too fast. And this is a very fair question, because in the early days of the pandemic, one of the concerns we kept saying was, the quickest we've ever got a vaccine to market has been 3 to 4 years. And so if we're, this may take a while. So we've kind of set the stage for the public to have a concern in thinking that, well, normally it takes a lot longer than this. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is that this happened a lot quicker than we've ever seen it happen in history, from a standpoint of we identified an infection and then we have a vaccine ready to prevent that infection. So we've set a record here. One of the key things that we talked about early on, though, and I think that has been followed, which is that you can make things happen quickly, but you can do it in a way where you don't cut corners. And I think the first thing to understand is that we got a vaccine to market in a way because of, first of all, existing technology, which has been around for a long time. Actually, some technologies longer than others, that we were able to identify this virus and figure out how to shape some vaccines to attack it. But the other thing is that we're able to get a trial going, and because we're in a global pandemic, getting results in that trial actually happened faster. So just to kind of explain this point, one of the things that they had to do with the Pfizer vaccine is they had to wait until so many people actually got COVID infection. Now, if COVID infection wasn't something that happened very frequently, like let's take an infection like Zika virus. Remember, Zika virus was a real concern a couple of years ago. Zika virus wasn't real common, but people were trying to find a vaccine to it. And if you have a trial where, well, you got to wait till so many people get the infection, and the infection is, common enough but not so common, you have to wait a long time before a lot of people get that. Well, unfortunately for us, we're in a pandemic and lots of people are getting coronavirus infection. So one of the ways we were able to get results on how effective some of these vaccines are is because so many people were getting infections that we could tell a difference between people who got vaccine and not. So and in that process, they're able to collect actually really important safety data, because most of the safety concerns that we get with the vaccine are actually, the biggest concerns are really in the first 2 months after getting the vaccine. So we were able to, see this timetable kind of crunch down. Is it faster than normal? Yes. Would I call it rushed? I don't think I would call it rushed, but I'll see what you guys think.
Yeah, I have 2 points to make about that, and I'll be honest with you, this was absolutely a question that was on my mind, and that I did a fair amount of my own research to answer in my mind, just as you two are, being on, or being one of the first folks, right, in our community to get this vaccine when the time comes. And the things that I learned in doing my own reading, number one, is that the technology of using messenger RNA is not brand new, actually. And Joe, you spoke to this a little bit. So the concept of using these little things that in our body make proteins went all the way back to the last SARS infection. So this has been around for more than a decade. The barriers into bringing a vaccine all the way to market using this kind of technology were a lot of the prevalence of disease, or in other words, trying to find vaccines to diseases that weren't so common by the time the trials came around. But also, secondly, very specifically, the mRNA itself is quite fragile. And so biologically getting the mRNA into a human cell in a way that it could survive and then do its job to make protein was a huge barrier for production. And that was overcome relatively early in the formation of this vaccine. So what happens now is that little piece of mRNA is kind of packaged in something called a lipid bimembrane. So it's like a pill, for lack of a better envelope, that the little piece of mRNA goes inside, and that just merges right in with our cells, and then the mRNA kicks in to do its own thing. But the second piece of that, which was reassuring to me, is that mRNA doesn't stay around for very long. So in my head, I had virus mRNA in my body and being incorporated and living there forever. And that's not at all what happened. So this mRNA doesn't live longer than a day in our body. So it does its job, and then our body just degrades it, just like it degrades other things. And I had a second point and I totally forgot. So I talked myself out of it, Steve. It's yours.
You had 2 points.
I know, but I don't remember what it was now. It'll come to me when
Maybe she was going for a
All
third.
right, it'll come to me. I was getting so excited that the mRNA wasn't like taking over my body.
I think the other thing I learned was that that part of the reason that the 2 vaccines that are going to be ready the soonest is because of the technology of mRNA vaccines makes the ability to develop a vaccine very rapid. So the technology itself allowed for part of the speed of the development. And then I think the other thing, that there's the development of the vaccine, and then there's the whole production, manufacturing, and distribution. And another thing that's been really amazing about this process is how quickly this has come to market and is going to be available for our use. And that's because, as you probably read in the papers, do people read papers anymore?
I don't know, Santa, is it in the paper?
Right. So old-fashioned.
As you've probably read, that the difference in this vaccine was, rather than waiting to make sure that it worked and then start in the manufacturing process, these things were really done simultaneously.
Oh, so that was my point.
Oh, I knew I was in your head.
Oh, good.
So that as soon as the vaccine was determined that it worked and that it was safe, the production is already underway and actually ready to be distributed. And back a couple of months ago, when it felt to me like there was some potential political motivation to get this vaccine out sooner than maybe it was completely ready, I had a little bit more hesitation. But the fact that I think now the scientists have really had a chance to see this data, the fact that the data has been so transparent, and that actually the decision to release it is being made by a bunch of really smart people, I feel pretty confident.